Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the football show. And as you can see, we've got a full complement today. Joining us, as ever, is the man whose name is on the show, Nevin. Good morning to you. Or good afternoon, sorry.
Good afternoon. Yeah, hi, Bharat, and good afternoon to you as well.
And it's really good to have Akash back, a fellow Fox. Hello, Akash. How are you, my friend?
Not so well after yesterday's game. It was a roller coaster ride. I hope that we recover into the new year, but let's see what happens.
Well, we'll come on to the game today, and for a start, it's really good to have a fellow Fox on the show for a change, so we can have proper football talk, unlike normal shows when it's all about Chelsea and what have you. But I wasn't too disappointed with the performance yesterday, considering the team we put out and the fight back. But it could have gone a lot worse after the start we had in the first half. But we will talk a little bit more about that. Let's get. Hopefully, everybody had a really good Christmas. It's always interesting to see how the the day is celebrated back home. Nevin, for you?
You don't want to know because I was busy working, but
Oh, on
that
Christmas
aside,
Day?
I've been doing a little bit of pro kabaddi work this season, so it's relentless. It's just every day. So that aside, but like good food, a friend came over, a lot of good wine, so can't complain.
Good, good.
Yeah, so all that was perfect. We attended the midnight mass as well. Went to
Okay.
the church, but it was not a good idea. It was crowded as hell, so we sort of just went there and just came back immediately. But all's good otherwise.
Well,
How
thankfully
was
in
it
the
over
U
there?
in oh, it was brilliant as ever. Thankfully, no sport. It's one day you don't want sport because you want. It's all about the food and the family. Although it's just a small gathering here, but a good turkey meal and yeah, a lot of wine or the equivalent alcohol was consumed, and a day of watching Marvel films of all things, which was good in the background, catching up with that. Akash, how was Christmas Day on in Kolkata?
The streets were buzzing, people were out, but I am too scared of contacting COVID, so I was indoors, as you said, enjoying with the family, watching a movie, having a wonderful dinner. That's the treat for me. And that was it. Pretty relaxed, staying indoors and following the protocols.
Well, that is really important, and it's obviously it's affecting the football program here in a ridiculous way. I think there's a bit of favoritism going on, but we'll talk about that as well. But let's talk about the big news from back home and the ISL, which we don't normally get in terms of the big teams changing their managers. It was a surprise to me. A big name, I think, one of the longest serving with a track record of winning. A shock for you, Nevin?
Somewhat, in the sense things weren't going right after a very good start to the season. It was very clear from what Habas was saying in post-match comments as well. He was saying that he was losing the identity, and it was remarkable that he didn't go back to his identity football, which was to have a defensive first approach. So it was a very clear mandate. I am assuming it was a very clear mandate from the management that they wanted an attacking sort of football, and it's not something I think Habas is best suited for. It's like asking Antonio Conte to play a different way, right? You can't. Certain managers are, designed or sort of destined to play a certain kind of football, and I think with Habas, especially when he was so effective with what he did, he was asking too much, and I think it was bound to happen, maybe not as soon as what happened. And I think the entire drama was very surprising. The next day, you go after a coach that is already coaching a club in your country. That seemed like a ridiculously, what do I say? It seemed like very short termish, and them just deciding that we can do whatever we want in this league. So just going and getting another coach from the league. I don't even know if their new coach plays that attractive football. So does it even really work in favor for them? So it's a very strange decision. But we've seen a lot of strange things happen in Indian football. So I'm not very surprised as well.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things you make that are very strange and unique to Indian football because FC Goa, let's face it, are a rival to 80K, and you can't see somebody like a Klopp going to Manchester United or something. I'm trying to get an analogy. It's just unheard of, even back in the day, of top managers changing
So
clubs.
I have a few questions for it. Right, one is, why does a manager have a release clause? That seems a little ridiculous in the first
Oh,
place, because
Brendan's
that's
got
what
one.
yeah, I think, a lot of people do, but like in India, I thought it was a little weird that there was a release clause attached to it, and for a massive amount of money. We were talking about like 1 crore, which is what normally clubs pay for Indian internationals. So if you want to sign a Brandon, or if you want to sign somebody like that who's a regular with the national team, that's the kind of money you pay. And for paying that kind of money to get a coach seemed extremely ridiculous. And if I were Goa, I would be happy, because I was like, I'm getting so much money. Here's a coach who's not been performing well for them as well. So it's not like FC Goa has been scoring 5 goals every match and winning everything that's coming their way. So they got to remove a coach, get 1 crore rupees, appoint an Indian coach as their replacement with lesser money, of course, and the entire world of Indian football is supporting them. They're feeling sympathy for the club, so it's a massive win for FC Goa, if you ask me.
Oh, I think we just got a cash back. Let's get him on because he's at the epicenter. I'm so glad you come back, Akash, because you're at the epicenter where all this is happening in Kolkata. What's the news gone down like in your city? Divided city when it comes to football.
It's very divided, and it is divided on so many levels because the first and foremost thing is what existed in ATK Kolkata as a solidified unit has been, divided into so many pieces now, because a few of the supporters don't even recognize ATK Mohun Bagan as a legitimate unit to represent the glorious history that the club has in Mohun Bagan. So the team is not getting their usual backing this season. And also, the rivalry isn't there because East Bengal, as you all know, has barely living on an oxygen cylinder, and the situation, the condition has been very poor. The West Bengal government has stepped in to help to generally on the basis of its heritage, they are maintaining and funding the club, but you are expecting that team to finish at the bottom of the table. So I really liked Havas. The things that he did with ATK was simply brilliant. We had a dominant period throughout the initial years of the ISL, and he has been a proven manager. To see him go when things are not going in ATK's level, I think the team should have done better because even in the AFC tournament they did relatively well, and then the manager, there was some issues at the camp, and let's say you know can't really put a finger on this issue because as a Bengal supporter doesn't really feel all that much about the sacking, but definitely with the memories that I had with ATK Kolkata, definitely it hurts to see such an influential man leave the camp uh, in this season, in the middle of the season. So that's always going to be a tough thing to comprehend.
It's interesting you mentioned the feelings in Kolkata about the new ATK Mohun Bagan team, and the fans of the traditional Mohun Bagan are not saying that they're supporters of this new team. Um, that's really interesting, and I'm a little bit surprised because the new management has tried to carry on with the colors and the badge, and it's just the name, but they feel very passionate about that old heritage, even though the new management has tried to incorporate it in this new brand. So, who are they supporting now?
They are not supporting. They are really have distanced themselves from their soul club. They think that just buying into it's sort of like MK Dons and Wimbledon, but not at that level yet. But they don't recognize this as a legitimate representation of their old heritage because they have dominated the I League for so long, and it's about their identity. Essentially, ATK Group buys a club like Mohun Bagan is simply not acceptable by the ardent fans of the club, and they see it as a downgrade because ATK was already a championship side, and even the thing has become like a venture and a business minded outfit which is not the passion of Kolkata. They wanted that to retain that rivalry between Mohun Bagan and East Bengal, and both the clubs have tried have struggled into this new channeling into this new league, and that has not resonated well at all with the fans. So they are not supporting anyone at the moment. Though the moment you see the social media outlets post something, there are abundant of replies and comments. People just disassociating themselves and telling them to get rid of the ATK brand and bring the old Mohun Bagan back. And if they do that, highly unlikely, but if they do that, I think they can retain some of it. There have been graffitis around the Yuva Bharati Stadium. We drive and we see there have been
I think we just lost you again there, Akash.
we are not the same. We are not the same club.
It's it's really sad that, and it's the
Different,
first.
and that
Yeah, it's the first time we're getting this insight from somebody who's actually living in the city, Nevin, and really sad to hear. And it just reflects what we've been saying, that we don't know what the actual fans think because it's been behind closed doors. But what Akash is saying is that good job it's behind closed doors, because the TV companies are hyping this rivalry up whenever they play, even though we know it's one-sided because of the levels of the two teams. But can you imagine this team in the main stadium in Kolkata playing in the ISL and the stands being not as packed as they would be? That would be a huge.
I think it's a bad phase for Calcutta football in general, and it goes to, I mean, East Bengal situation is not helping in any sense because they're way off pace and they are not a good team. And with ATK Mohun Bagan, it's a very tricky situation, right? In some sense, ATK did come and bail them out in terms, during a supposedly financially difficult phase. So in some sense, you can understand why ATK wants their name. They're like, why own a team when we can't put our name onto it or whatever. If not ATK, can we put like another brand or their company's name or something along with it, right? Everybody has commercial interest, so it's one thing to be very romantic, but in reality, why would they come just bail somebody out with no profits? But like, strangely enough, I've got like multiple documents in front of me, and it's all about Mohan Bagan's 1911 victory against the British club, and I've just been reading a lot about it, and that's when you understand what this club means. This is a massive, massive football club. I mean, it's played a big role in India's freedom struggle. Yeah, it's one of the oldest clubs in the world. It's almost like, so I'm reading the stories, and it's almost like Lagan, where for once, the Indians thought, and they are equal to the Britishers, and they could defeat Britishers, and the training that went behind it. It's a massive story on its own. So you can understand why the fans also don't want to relate to an ATK. They're a club with its own identity. I don't know what the solution is. Do they go their separate ways in the future? Because why would an ATK fund a club that doesn't want their name attached to it? But then, how do we go about it? So I don't know the solution. I asked a couple of Mohan Bagan fans themselves. They said we'd rather be in a I league than be attached to this. Have this ATK attached. But like, will ISL let them go because this is their supposed money bank? So they don't want to let them go. So it's an absolute mess. I think they didn't think this through. I know the last few years have been difficult. Everybody sort of said, they should come to the ISL, but the ISL as a product doesn't really, connect with the fans, or they don't have that, that process. So it feels really out of place to see East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, in a league like ISL, which just doesn't really connect with the people. It's close. There's no relegation. There is no promotion. So it doesn't really sit well with their identity. So I think it's lost somewhere there. I don't think a solution is going to come out in the next, maybe not even this year. But hopefully we will keep the identity of this massive club alive.
Absolutely, and we've talked about how respected both clubs are because of the tradition and the history and the fan base, more importantly, that they have. And it's not just in Kolkata. When those two teams played, no matter where in India or even if it was in Kolkata, the audience was huge, the interest was huge. And, Nevin, you say that it'll be difficult for somebody to start up because the powers the federation has over football. So I was just linking back to what Akash was saying about the Wimbledon Dons and MK Dons and how Wimbledon resurrected itself through the fan base, came up through the structure. Because in the UK, luckily, we've got a structure. You can start from the bottom, and they're now in the first division, I think, or the second division, the old Wimbledon, as it were. And funnily enough, I think it was this year they went back to their old ground as well, Plough Lane. What a turnaround that was. Akash, is that something that is remotely possible that the fans can resurrect the club, or it's just not possible because of the powers that ATK as a business has and ISL as a business has and the federation in terms of the football structure?
It will be interesting to see what transpires out of the situation when the people are allowed back into the stadium and every club gets their home stadium. The turnout of the crowd is going to be a huge factor to see and assess the situation where the supporters lie, the ratio of it. I think those things are going to take its toll and the eventual effects are going to be seen on the field. I think the support doesn't retain itself as Nevin said, many people are vouching that this is, recognize ISL as a legitimate league. It's an exclusive club of those teams that play each year. There is no promotion relegation. And essentially you make the I League, which was the top tier football in India, you make it as a second division, which is very detrimental to how this structure of football has been in India. And it is one of the reasons why football is not flourishing in our country, and it has been a pending issue since long. And we have taken a few error-prone steps, I would say, to match up this situation. The takeovers happened in an instant, and the one thing that connected the whole city, this divided city of immigrated people, the Bengalis, every culture associated with it was really channeled out through ATK Kolkata, and that was one outfit that you can really get behind because that was your city. The whole state of West Bengal was rooting for it. But then you create a divide. You go with Mohan Bagan, and the Mohan Bagan fans are not happy with it. You create a diverse fan base in East Bengal. So there are three parties: one ATK Mohan Bagan supporters, one original Mohan Bagan supporters, one East Bengal. So you get 33% of the supporters that you originally had in a team. So that's gonna take a massive toll in the upcoming seasons when everything goes back to normal once again.
Yeah, and it's a story that I know we're going to come back to because, like I said, like everybody said, the reputation both clubs have, and we'll see how that pans out. But just going back to the ISL, I saw a couple of tweets from, Nevin was saying the link isn't there between the supporters, but I do believe a few Kerala fans found the love of the game in the past week. Nevin, it's been a hell of a week for the Blasters, starting with that incredible result against the City Group.
Yeah, you know what? I predicted it. So it's strange that we were having a conversation in a WhatsApp group, and people were saying, "Oh my God, look at the three fixtures. Kerala Blasters is going to struggle." And I said like 7 points. Absolutely not believing that they can actually get the 7 points from it. But it so happened. It so happened that it did turn out to be 7 points, and I did predict a red card for Mumbai City. That also happened. So people are now calling me Paul the Octopus. But that aside, I think Kerala are looking like a very good side. They don't have like exceptional footballers, but they are working together as a unit. Sahal has found his golden touch again. He's scoring a lot of goals. I've been very surprised. I mean, I've been like pleasantly surprised with how the forwards have sort of worked together. The likes of Cabra. I think the central midfield is something that really doesn't get a lot of attention, but I think in Kutia and Jackson, they've had like a very good, hard-working central pair as well. So it's a good side. I don't think we should jump the gun and say they're going to challenge for the trophy or anything. But sometimes in ISL that is all it takes. It's a small league, so 5-6 victories and not losing. I think Kerala hasn't lost a match in its last 7 games. So I think that's a good streak to be in. It's very similar to what Steve Coppell managed, but I think this is slightly more entertaining than when it was under Steve Coppell. But it was very similar for Kerala back then. They wouldn't concede a lot of goals. They would make it like 1-0, 2-0, and things like that. So Hopefully, all's good for Kerala, and they can continue this momentum.
And Akash, I mean, Kerala did beat Man City, but I would say Man City, Mumbai City, 3-0. But I think that might have been a bit of a blip. But also, in terms of the City group itself, do you think this is now finally come? And we said it in a couple of shows with Nevin, that is it coming to fruition in the ISL? And this little bit worries me, and this might be because of the Saturday or Christmas day I had, and the collection of the Infinity Stones, because Man City, the Melbourne club won their A League, New York City won the MSL, Major League Soccer, and Man City on track to win the EPL. Is this something that we should be worried about if one city group wins titles across the world?
It's a tried and tested methodology implemented by the Manchester City group. It's happening even if we don't like it, even if it creates an imbalance in every league. But they are trying it. They are purchasing teams left, right, and center. And those two groups in Melbourne, Australia, and in the MLS, they have been self-sustained for a long time, and it was coming. And even massive influx of money in any league is gonna give to results. Even I think a team like Mumbai City will do eventually very well with that money, because ultimately a team like Kerala Blasters, who we have seen, go to the finals in the first season of the ISL, and then hit a new low and then struggle, and now they are climbing back up, and they are doing it in a very organized way. They are avoiding defeats. I think, as Nevin said, in the first match they lost to ATK Mohun Bagan, and then they have kept the matches which were out of their control in a stalemate and won whenever possible to cause upsets. And I think that's a very organic growth of a team. I would be happy to see at least a few of those sides challenge the city-owned groups, because otherwise, yeah, they are dominating football in every country, and that's not a good sight to behold.
And well, we'll see. I mean, we'll talk about the EPL and whether the title is almost over in the next part of the show. But Nevin, just finishing off on the ISL. I mean, there's Mumbai City are there, and looking really good despite a couple of the results. But unusual names in following them in the playoff positions, and we're nearly at the halfway stage. Do you see any of them being able to keep those positions?
Uh, I'm hoping at least one or two does. I quite like what I mean, you know it for yourself that I'm a big fan of Owen Coyle. He sort of won our hearts. I remember our discussion before he joined, and it's like, what are they thinking and all that. And he's sort of become now the go-to manager in India. So I kind of like what Jamshedpur is doing. They're playing to their strength. They're not like a team filled with a lot of talent, but what they have, they know how to use. So I'm really hoping Jamshedpur is in the run. I want Kerala to be there simply because of the fans and what it can mean for the league itself. And Chennai has been, despite that southern derby loss to Kerala, I think they've also been quite resolute at the back. And we need these styles, right? I keep telling, football is not just about playing, a lot of goals and a lot of tricks and stuff like that. It's also resolute defending and putting your body out there. And Chennai have been doing it quite well. I think Vishal Cates is having a poor season, so that's not really helped as a goalkeeper. But otherwise, I think they're a decent side. So I expect them also to be in the run, and then obviously the likes of Goa, ATK, and Co have the strength in them to keep challenging. So once I don't know how much Goa can do it considering the season's been very topsy turvy, but I think ATK should be back in the run very soon. So it's a lot of teams, and I think ISL will be extremely unpredictable going forward as well. We saw Odisha play a
Yeah.
few really good matches, so they are also there in thick of things. So very interesting season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Odisha have had a bit of a blip, but they're not losing too many. But we'll see how they play the second half. Akash, I know we had when Leicester won the league, the example of Aizel, I think, was given roundly in India in terms of the equivalent Could this be the year when an outsider wins the ISL because of the other so-called top four teams like ATK, FC Goa, Bengaluru not having this normal season?
Very tough to say because again Mumbai is right at the top, so it's going to create problems. But the gap is very narrow, 2 points now. So it's hard to judge because all the things are happening right now. Mumbai lost a game against Kerala, which you usually don't predict. So it is going to take a lot of blips to that to transpire, but one can only hope.
Well, absolutely, and it'll be interesting second half of the season as well. Nevin, just to end, do you think there'll be hugs and high fives between Juan Fernandez and the Goa players because they've got a reunion on Wednesday?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody at FC Goa is particularly happy with what has happened. Um, Even though I keep saying that they should be happy because at the end of the day they got a lot of money and money is really hard to come by in Indian football. So if I were FC Goa, I'd be pretty happy if the so-called figure is true. Nobody knows whether they've actually paid 1 crore for his services, but but I don't think there's going to be a lot of high fives, and I think maybe Goa is going to be like super eager to
Yeah,
sort of prove that they are a very good side.
yeah, absolutely. But something else to add to the pot. It'll be interesting on Wednesday how that match goes. Turning to European football, let's start with the draw for the Champions League that was made. Two draws, in fact, because they didn't like the first one. But two draws. Akash, I know you follow Spanish football. There's one big club missing for the first time forever. But a big name in the draw, PSG against Real Madrid. That's going to be a hell of a game.
I think the first draw had better teams pitted against each other, but yeah, we have to go with the second one. So I think very easy fixture for Manchester United, and as you said, the highlight remains in PSG versus Real Madrid. It had to happen because you can't feed Ronaldo versus Messi in the first round. So we find ways around it. So Messi gets to visit Real Madrid, Santiago Bernabeu once again, and the fans will be absolutely buzzing. I know Barcelona is not there anymore, and the downgrade of Barcelona is a really concerning thing for me because I do like the team, I do support the outfit, but whatever happening in Spanish football, it's sort of a worrying sign because either we literally have three teams representing Spain at the top of their game, and losing out Barcelona in that run doesn't resonate well with the league. Real Madrid again, the team shouldn't be doing this well considering the players that they have, but Carlo Ancelotti has gone into the World Cup and he has found Karim Benzema, in the recent season, he has shown what he can achieve without a front man and not feeding balls to a player like Ronaldo. He has flourished on his own. He has matured, and I think a very interesting match because PSG, you expect them to win all the games, but they haven't. They have hit some sort of roadblocks in every tournament they are in. So it's going to be fascinating, and I wouldn't be surprised if Real Madrid somehow upsets the All Star team of PSG.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot. I mean, this is what Pochettino's been brought in for to win the Champions League. He might be signing an early contract to join United if the result doesn't go his way in this round of 16. But just a side note, Akash, you probably noticed that if I think it was Warsaw had scored that last minute penalty against Spartak, we would have been playing Barcelona in the knockout stage of the Europa League. It would have been one of those things. We'll have to wait until we play them in the Champions League in a couple of years' time. But in terms of your boys, you must be happy again. Very lucky, Nevin, with the draw.
Yeah, we've got the same team in two draws, so I think it was destined to be Lily. I think somebody had already fixed everything to ensure that it's the same team. But at the end of the day, I think once you reach knockout phases of Champions League, I don't think there's an easy match. I know it's a very cliched saying. On paper, yes, a couple of teams will be a little weaker, but these are knockout matches. Something can go wrong on that night, and suddenly you are trailing 3-0, 3-1, and all that. We've seen all that kind of drama happen. So and Chelsea's not been playing to their full potential. I know Lukaku's back, but it's still a very, a lot of injuries here and there. I think Kante and Chalaba picked up injuries last night. So even Thiago Silva picked up injuries. So tricky, but since it's in February, hopefully Chelsea will have some time to recover and they should, on paper, be able to beat Lille, but you
Yeah.
never know with these
I'm
things.
not sure they'll have time to recover. They've got a couple of Carabao Cup. We decided we didn't want to go into the semis, so we lost that deliberately, and because of the fixture congestion. But Chelsea have got a couple of tough games against Tottenham. They will have to field a top team because of the rivalry between those sides. But the other games I'm looking forward to, which should be really good, is Madrid against United and Milan against Liverpool. I think Milan will give Liverpool a test, so plenty to look forward to in February. But in terms of the Premier League, are we back to the so-called Big Six? Akash, Akash, are you back? Akash, can you join?
Yeah,
Akash, can you hear me? I think he's having
Yeah.
internet problems in
Yeah, let's
Kolkata.
wait for him to join.
Let me ask you, while we wait for Akash to come back, we'll need to have a word with the here he is, he's back. Let's see if we can get
Okay.
him back on. Akash, you back?
I don't know what the problem with my network is today, but yeah, I'm back after 2 minutes.
Well, the main thing, I can see the collage of pictures behind you on the wall. That's the main thing. Long as that is clear, that's okay. And can you hear me, or have you frozen again? I think he's frozen. Let me ask you while he sorts out his internet, Nevin, in terms of the top six, or so-called top six. Are we back to normal?
Define what is normal, though. It's a little,
Normal is
it
seeing
does.
the three London clubs there with the two Manchester clubs, Liverpool. Well, it's top seven now, I suppose, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
what do you
It
think?
depends on do you still see Arsenal, Spurs in that top six category, or do you think they are no longer, they should no longer be featured there? Because I mean, I like what I see about Arsenal, but then I also get this feeling that not a lot of top coaches have given them a proper you know it's not like Arsenal has performed really well against top teams, so it's going to be tricky. Maybe once right now a lot of teams are extremely depleted, so you can't really judge based on the squads these teams are taking on these days. I know Arsenal also have their own casualties, but something about it doesn't. I like what I see about Arsenal. They're playing fearless football. There's a lot of youth involved. I like Smith Rowe. I like Saka. A lot of these players are showing their potential, but I still feel it might be a little too early to expect them to challenge for top four. But definitely a good team. I think the coronavirus spreading like this is not was not I think something that people had preempted, and that is really affecting the balance of a lot of sides as well. So you see that even good teams will probably take a beating in January, February, especially with the AFCON also coming in. So I think it's too early to draw any conclusion. I think end of January is when we would have like a fair idea of how this league is shaping up.
Yeah, but when you see the progress that Arsenal have made and Tottenham have made under Conte, although I have to say Kane should have been sent off again yesterday. He should have been sent off last week as well. It's
It's a
ridiculous.
very
And
he's getting really ugly. Yeah.
yeah, I'll come to refereeing because the pinnacle was the Carabao Cup, Liverpool versus Leicester. That was the pinnacle of the worst refereeing I've seen for a long time. But Akash, I don't know if you can hear me, but I was asking Nevin whether you think, because it seems like the West Ham bubble is busting, if it's not already bust, that the top six the traditional top six is being restored.
Still missing.
I can see him, but I can't hear him. Can you hear me, Akash? Can you hear me? I think he's freezing. The internet is letting him down. But we'll carry
It's a
on.
winter.
Yeah, it's the winter.
Winter.
We need to have a word with the powers that be in Kolkata. But in terms of Chelsea and the blip you've had with a couple of draws, because even top teams, when they're following Man City, you can't afford to drop points. Any worries for you? I know you mentioned Lukaku's coming back and the missing players, but they're not having the best of times at the moment under Tuchel.
Absolutely. But I think it's really down to Chelsea missing N'Golo Kante and Mateo Kovacic. I think once they are on the field, they are an entirely different side. I know everybody talks about the impact Lukaku made yesterday, but let's not forget Kovacic came in and he sort of started running at defenders. He just dribbled past a lot of players and playing those right passes. So I think if Chelsea can have Kante and Kovacic fit for at least 80 to 90% of the remaining season, I think they'll still be in the title fight. I know Liverpool and City are playing really good football, so it's not going to be easy. Any blip, any sort of see in a normal season in say 2000s or even the 90s, this should be completely fine. Two draws here and there wouldn't really affect your title chance. But the City is like a machine. They can score 95, 98 points every damn season. So you can't afford any mistakes. And to be fair, Tuchel is still a new coach. It's still, a relatively new side with a lot of new forwards. I think maybe this season is too early for Chelsea, despite the money they've invested in the last couple of seasons. But I really think they have the potential to keep challenging. So it could be like an 85 plus point season for Chelsea, even if they don't win a title. So I think that'll be seen as a good. Because I think considering where Chelsea have been finishing in the last few seasons in the 70s and the late 60s, I think to get like around 80 plus points would be seen as a massive improvement. If they can challenge for the title, I don't know.
But
It will really require City to implode a little. But
it won't help Tuchel's reputation, which is slightly growing here in the sense that he's a cup manager rather than the league manager. So if it's not close to Man City, I think the pressure for next season will be huge because of the outlay, simply of the outlay of the money.
But then, how do you come to that conclusion that he's a cup manager based on half a league's performance? He did win the league at PSG, so I know it's not much of a task winning a league at PSG, but they did win. And at Dortmund, he was never expected to win the league anyway because it's Bayern Munich. So I think it's sort of unfair to say he's not a league manager. But I think November, December has been a little tough for Chelsea, and I think we have seen that Tuchel is also a human, that he is also prone to all these, mistakes and
And he
all the
feels
drama
very
that's around.
he feels very let down by the Premier League in terms of some of the other
Yeah,
big clubs having their games postponed. Liverpool have had another game postponed tomorrow, I think.
which seems incredibly unfair. So, what is the basis of this? So, how can
Th-
some teams?
This
It
is
just
what
makes no
everybody's
sense at all.
asking. They should say you need this number of fit players to play. If you have, you
Yeah.
play. If you don't, you don't play. I mean, the excuse they've given for Wolves and I think it's Liverpool tomorrow is the injuries and COVID. Well, look at the injury list Leicester have got. It's
Like
ridiculous.
literally every other team has the same problems, and it's been a stressful season as well. So on top of it, there are other injuries not related to COVID also. And even if you recover from COVID, a lot of people lose a lot of body weight. A lot of people, struggle to make comebacks. It's just, and you are encouraging a packed stadium, but then you have a separate bubble for your youth team, so you can't get them, or you are otherwise exposing your entire youth team as well. It's just an absolute mess, and I don't understand. They should have just shut it down for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
let people just isolate, and let that Christmas high sort of end and start the season
I
again.
mean,
Very plain and simple.
traditionally Christmas is a big time for football because the fans, you get sellout crowds. Our game on tomorrow night against Liverpool, it's a tradition. Boxing Day is always at home.
Traditionally, there was no coronavirus,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I think this is a unique time, but they're not looking at that. And I'll be honest with you, for the first time ever in my life as a Leicester supporter, I was glad the Tottenham game was cancelled because of the COVID situation and Leicester's, as in the city's reputation for not being always at the best. It's the first time ever I was glad a game that I was going to was cancelled, and we've just lost Akash out there. I was just gonna. Here we go. He's joining, so he comes in at the right time actually. Akash, we keep losing you, but you're coming back at the right time because I'm moving the conversation on to proper football now in terms of our boys. And I've been following the WhatsApp messages in the group from back home. And I know that your sort of generation, and but a lot of anger. But I asked Nevin this about expectation and as a club of Leicester size, whether we should be hoping to win at Manchester City.
Oh, no. You lost me again.
Manchester City really was a game that we cannot expect to win at this stage due to the massive difference of structures that an organizations that won the league. The performance, I would say, the second half performance, especially because that gave us a hope which doesn't happen often. And I remember in last season in the Premier League game against Liverpool, we had that same kind of momentum in the span of 10 minutes, and we just completely turned around the game. And yesterday it was looking magical like that, hitting the twice. But again,
Oh, I think we're having more problems with the
penalty
internet.
that
Akash,
Kolkata is having a
he's
bad
really
day.
struggling in Kolkata. But let me just carry on with the Leicester City talk. Because yesterday when I saw the team, it was pretty much C stroke B team that we put out yesterday, and when it went to 4-0 at half time, you know what Man City usually do. They score another four in the second because they never let off the pedal. They keep the foot on the pedal, and the way the boys came back was really incredible, and with that team as well. But the game against Liverpool, I mean, that referee should never. I don't know if you saw the highlights because I don't expect you to stay up that late to watch a Carabao Cup game playing Liverpool playing Leicester. Unbelievable. The tackle on Pereira was a red card. Jota clearly elbowed Thomas. That should have been a red card. The penalty by Firmino, he stopped, and Michael called it
Bad
out.
penalty.
And it just beggars belief the standard. And the questions here were whether the referees in England are now, because obviously I don't know if you know this or you probably do know this, and we talked about it because no referee from England was good enough to go to the last World Cup. There's no way there's going to be a good enough referee to go to Qatar next year. Absolutely no way. The standard, and it's, I don't know if it's, and they were talking about it, whether VAR is playing on the minds of the referees. But then VAR is letting them down as well. Because you're getting the same referees who are doing the match days sitting in the control room, making the same, but they have the same standard. It's so
It's
frustrating as a fan.
it's a problem of you bringing in technology, but still relying on the decision to be subjective. It can't be. It's very fairly said, but I know a lot of ruckus was created about maybe a toenail offside or like a a stand of your hair in the offside. But if the rule is a rule, that has to be like fixed. Now the problem here is that if it touches your hand, make it a handball. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we'll have to do something. The moment you make it, is it deliberate? Is it obstructing? Then it becomes subjective, and forever we will keep seeing these kind of dubious calls, and it will always favor the bigger teams. It will always favor the Liverpools. It will always favor the Manchester Uniteds because I think we are all humans, and you kind of tend to support with the more popular ones with the more fans. I think whatever, I mean, however neutral you want to be, I think all these things will creep in, and that is the reason why you to go to technology to take away this natural bias that we have in ourselves. But then you use technology to see it and then make your own observation. Makes no sense at all. I've seen multiple penalty calls just it's just ridiculous what is being given as a penalty and what is not. Sometimes they'll just say, okay, it's not deliberate, but it's really obstructing the ball's path towards goal. So, okay, I mean, maybe it's not deliberate, but if it is obstructing and if it is a little away from your body, it is a penalty, right? And I've seen multiple cases like this. Some of these fouls are not called foul because it's soft. Now, what is a soft?
Well, if you
What
look
is a
at
soft
if
foul?
you look at last week's, Robertson was sent off, and I thought that was a red card. But
Yeah.
then and the referee went to the. He was told to go and see the screen on the side, and that made up his mind. But the Kane one, I mean, that was much worse in my opinion, in terms of his intent.
If thankfully Robertson was, managed to sort of evade it. I think
Jump.
he was on the air. Yeah,
That was a
exactly. If
broken
he
leg for
was,
certain.
yeah, if his leg was on the ground, I think that's his season over for sure. It's perhaps even career. It's that bad. And then you also, I think that match was filled with a lot of errors because I thought Liverpool scored in a counter, of which I think Dele Alli deserved a penalty. Again, how are you going to say it's soft or not? There was a deliberate push, and he was about to score. That's
Alexander.
penalty. Now you can't say it's soft, and the moment you add these adjectives and relative terms into decision making, then you will never get the decision right.
I,
There was a push. That's a penalty. That's it.
I
That you
think it
can't.
was one of the worst weekends for refereeing because the other highlight was the Man City goalkeeper taking out. Who were they playing? He took out a player in the penalty box, and anywhere
Oh
else,
yeah.
it was a yellow card, and nothing was given. It should have been a penalty, but the referee just didn't. It's just unbelievable, and
Even yesterday for Chelsea's match, I mean, it didn't really matter at the end of the day. So Lukaku's on goal, he's about to shoot, somebody tackles and it's a yellow card. I mean, for like entire like everywhere I've seen football, that's a red card. Not that I want the player to get a red card, but it's a blatant challenge to prevent a goal scoring opportunity right in front of the goal. It's a yellow card. Now, where is the consistency? Is what we're asking. There is absolutely no
it
consistency,
is
and I think
shock.
City were lucky against was it Wolves? I think they
Yeah,
had like a very lucky penalty happening
it wasn't a
there.
penalty.
Uh, it's
It,
just
it is shocking that in Europe, I mean, we had the Euros here obviously this year, and everything went really well. The VAR worked. Everybody was saying it was quick decisions. In Europe, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. They seem to be
and it was
getting it.
one of the best tournaments to watch. I think a lot of people forget it because I think the referees were making it really seamless and very good performance. I think it just improved everybody's. It improved our consumption pattern. It improved people's experience at the stadium. It was just a very good tournament.
But one thing I've learned, I'm not going to throw any stones at Indian referees, especially as I'm living in a glass house here, and it's ridiculous, and it was so annoying. And
I think with the Indian referees and what is happening right now is just ridiculous. They are going to Instagram pages and abusing the hell out of these referees for making a couple of bad decisions. But Indian referees, they're not even paid well. I earn
that's why I say,
more than
yeah.
yeah, I earn more than what a referee who is like the best in the country is earning, and that's just ridiculous. I don't have the qualifications to be earning as much as him,
Oh,
but
referees here are very well paid.
yeah,
And the one thing I want,
and they don't get football. They don't get to officiate a lot of matches. Do they have like exposure tours that is afforded to others? In fact, that is why you want to invest. Get these young coaches, get these young referees to travel. Now that's exposure. That's what will really
send them out
improve
to
the football.
camps and what have you. They do happen. They do happen. And I've seen many coaches as well, not just referees, come out to Europe from other parts and even from Europe to England and vice versa, just to learn. But it's ridiculous how in England the technology is just not help making a difference. And the final
I think,
straw.
I probably not my right to say this, but I find English referees a little arrogant.
Yes.
Like, they're just like, I'm right. I don't care what you think, and then they follow it up with that. One, the other referees are running throughout the match. I feel they are just a little not up to pace with the football that is happening in English Premier League. I don't know what is the exact reason, but I feel them. I found them to be a little like we are right and nobody can question us, and
Well, that's the
I think
thing.
that really.
That's the thing. Nobody can question them. And one thing I really don't know why it doesn't come in. They're professionals. They get paid really well. After a game, they should be put in front of the media to
Yeah.
justify some of their
Media might
decisions.
be a little too much, but at least
No,
they need to
no.
answer to the FA or whatever.
Well, then it'll be another closed door thing. I think it has to be transparent and open, and just like managers, players, everybody after a bad game, tough game, whatever, comes out and speaks to the media. I'm not saying straight on the pitch, but afterwards when they've had time to get changed or whatever. They have one interview straight on the pitch or after the game, and then the media have another session, don't they, afterwards? It should be something like that for the referees, because at the moment they're getting away with absolute, literally, I was going to say murder, but in the football sense. But at least that spices up the game tomorrow night against Liverpool. And I really hope. I mean, I shouldn't say, but I really hope Jota plays, because he's not going to get a good reception, because I don't know if you saw his celebration after his penalty, but it's ridiculous. But it is what it is, I suppose. But yeah, it was another couple of weeks of great football. In terms of what we saw in the ISL, with all the goals continuing to go in. The EPL is now, well, I don't know where it is. Some games get cancelled on the day, some get cancelled. We'll see what happens. But a lot to look forward to in 2022. But the main thing is that I'm going to look forward to speaking to you, my friend. It's been another fantastic year. I'm not sure I'll get to speak to you before the new year comes in, but I want to wish you incredible 2022. You've been amazing this year and a really good friend.
You too,
So
Bharat. You too.
uh, I know
Have a
everything
great
you
year.
do. Wish you success, my friend. But
Thank you so
I'll speak
much.
to you in the new year. Take care.
Bye bye.